hello everybody, I am Cathy Durant from Savings to Ifield, for those I haven't met. So, over the years we've heard quite a lot of what we consider to be myths about the West of Ifield development to justify it. So what we want to do tonight is to address what we see as some of those myths and why we object to it and what we think the issues are. And then we'll move on to look at the process for responding to the planning application and who else you could potentially write to should you choose to. So, myths, issues and objections, and we have heard some of these myths here tonight already. So, myth 1. This is for Crawley. Crawley desperately need these houses. Well, yes, Crawley do desperately need houses. It's quite known that Crawley is built up to its edges. But what Crawley needs is social housing. That's housing that some people may call council housing. It's housing that is generally available at 40% reduction on the market or the rental value. We do not see anywhere in the planning application any mention of social housing. We do see mention of affordable housing, 35% affordable housing, but that is 20% off market sale or rental value. In this area, 80% of the full price is still more expensive than most people can afford. So this isn't meeting the housing needs of Crawley. The second point, and this has been touched on tonight already, is Crawley Borough Council don't want this. They are firmly against it and have made their view known publicly on a number of occasions. It doesn't meet local housing needs and it puts too much strain on local infrastructure. Chris mentioned the proximity to Crawley, that this is on Crawley's borders and there's an adjacency to Ifield itself. Well, that is a problem, and it's a big problem, and it actually could be potentially in breach of Horsham Zone policy because the location being on the border of Crawley, but abutting when the housing is built the local areas such as Rusper, Ifield Wood, could cause a broken coalescence, which is against planning policy and it's against Horsham's own policy. So that is a big issue. And lastly, it's been mentioned a couple of times tonight about the local plan. Well, the local plan which was under examination last December, as it's been mentioned, those examinations were curtailed by the planning inspector for a number of reasons. But before the examinations finished, he did mention that the Horsham draft local plan didn't consider the impact on the Crawley of the West of Ifield at all. So all in all, West of Ifield is what's known as a urban extension placed on the edge of a town that doesn't want it. And it could be seen as political dumping by those in Horsham that don't want it in their own area. The second myth. Plenty of jobs at Gatwick and in Crawley. Crawley sits in the middle of the Gatwick Diamond, and so there's an assumption that there's an unlimited amount of jobs for residents of the new estate. Well, there's a couple of key points that are being missed here. Firstly, the profile of the nature of jobs in Crawley and Gatwick is changing. Manor Royal is changing from office space predominantly to warehouse space, and that's been an escalation since COVID because we see so much more online shopping, and that means there's less jobs and those jobs are less well paid. Secondly, Gatwick is becoming increasingly automated and the majority of jobs are low paid and insecure. So there's a complete mismatch with the houses that are being provided and the people that will potentially need to buy them. They won't be able to afford them. And another myth here is that Crawley has an unlimited supply of jobs. Well, Crawley's own local plan recognises that Crawley's constrained for space, and what it does need, in fact, is employment land. Our own planning consultant, when we put in our own Reg 19 response last year, considered that West of Ifield delivered too much housing and too little employment in an area which already needs significant employment land. And one final point, it was mentioned that there was 2,800 jobs being made available. Half of those are in construction, will fall away after the construction is finished, leaving 1,400 jobs on the site for all those many people. So the rest of the people will be looking for jobs elsewhere. Thirdly, and this has been touched on tonight as well, Crawley has good infrastructure. Well, we don't hear a day where we don't hear about Thames Water and their difficulties, their financial struggles, their ability to meet their commitments, their spillage sewages, the fines. Crawley Wastewater Treatment Works is at capacity. It was designed for a population of 40,000. We already have a population of 120,000. The system needs serious upgrading. And Crawley and Thames Water have been raising this as a concern for a number of years. But it appears that Homes England and Horsham Council have done no planning to mitigate these risks. The application documents themselves, and please point me to where it states it clearly, appear to contradict each other on whether consultation with Thames Water has or hasn't taken place. Some says it has, some say it hasn't. So we need to see that quite clearly. If it is the case that the need for mitigations have been ignored, that could be a serious legal breach. Moving on, roads and transport. We believe that the proposals for roads and transport are deeply flawed and will cause disastrous effects on traffic volumes and disastrous effects on safety around Ifield and Rusper. So just looking at the traffic modelling, we know that that's not done by Homes England, it's done by West Sussex County Council, but we understand it was 100% desk-based and they didn't actually come down and see the roads at all. They were invited but didn't come. So the baseline for traffic modelling is current traffic volumes, and then there's an estimate of the additional volumes that are added to it. But the very fact that the roads in question that are going to have the additional cars coming onto them are so congested and snarled up already are proof that the traffic modelling that's been done in the past hasn't worked. So we're adding trouble to trouble to trouble. We believe that the modelling is overly optimistic about the extent to which residents will shift away from car use towards active travel and using public transport. That's been touched on here tonight already. And we also believe that the impacts on nearby villages such as Rusper and Charlwood have been seriously underestimated. So let's just have a look at some of those routes and how it's going to look in practice. So this is a map of the area as it stands at the moment. I'll try and use the pointer, but I might not be able to. So this first cross is where Rusper Road is going to be blocked off, closed to no through traffic, just between Pound Cottages and Furlong Farm for those who know it. And it's going to be closed there because we're going to see the link road cutting across, as Rebecca said, from the development itself across to Charlwood Road at the top there. This blue route is the route that people in Rusper are going to be asked to take into Crawley. So starting in Rusper here, going along the Rusper Road, then jinking up the link road to join Charlwood Road. And from there, they'll either go straight on into Crawley, or if they want to go back to Ifield Station, we'll come back through Ifield Green and come up Ifield Drive to Ifield Station. It should be pointed out at this stage that Ifield Green is a residential road, usually one-way traffic, because there are parked cars with traffic bumps, and it's part of Ifield conservation area. We see at the bottom here, the cross, that is the entrance to the golf course, and that is where the electronic bus gate will go, and the other purple line is the road through the development. So we won't be able to have people going from Crawley End directly up Rusper Road to Rusper, or from Rusper going down to Crawley directly by the Rusper Road anymore.
No.
The brown road at the top there, that is Ifield Avenue. That is already deeply congested every single rush hour. So we can see it's coming from the opposite, the entrance opposite Bonnets Lane there on Charlwood Road, going down to the A23. That distance is a mile. So the traffic from the new development and from Rusper and from beyond is going to have to go a mile through residential areas, past schools, through various sets of traffic lights, and I understand there's going to be another set of traffic lights put in as a mitigation, until it reaches any main road whatsoever. This red road is the proposed route for the construction traffic. So it's coming off, it's proposed it's going to come off the A23 at Gossip's Green, go up Gossip's Drive, come down Overdene Drive, passing an area where children cross the road to go to Ifield School, Ifield Senior School, coming around a really steep bend, and I used to live on that really steep bend, and the number of times cars came directly off the road into the fence of the area is untrue. It's then going to come round down Overdene Drive, past the petrol station, snarling up the already snarled up every morning junction with Ifield Station, passing the Mill Primary School and down Tanmere Road, another single carriageway because of parked cars, residential road, where it joins Rusper Road and comes up to the development. So, we are going to see rat running off those local roads in Langley Green and Ifield. We're going to see a danger to road safety where the construction traffic is and going up into the development itself. And moreover, in that section of Rusper Road there, you can see just the yellow where the red cross is up at the top. If there is any kind of accident or incident there, where the red cross can't get through, emergency vehicles will not be able to get through if it's past the bus gate on this side. That is a serious, serious concern. Point 3 in Crawley has good infrastructure. The need for health services isn't sufficiently addressed. The region needs hospitals. Everybody knows this region needs hospitals. Now, Crawley Hospital is mentioned in the planning documents, but there's no mention of it having no A&E department. East Surrey Hospital, and if everyone here has been to East Surrey Hospital any time recently, you know what it's like, isn't mentioned. So there's a very big doubt over whether the hospital provision is going to be able to cope with in this area at all. And as well as the health provision that is being provided, the health centres, what we need is doctors and dentists to go in those buildings. Now, our esteemed local MP, before he was elected, John Milne, agreed with this. He in fact said of urban add-ons, the trouble is you're never going to get the infrastructure you need with a new development if you build an urban add-on. Funnily enough, he changed his mind when he was elected. Myth number 4, the government has deep pockets. Now, west of Ifield is a development that needs a lot of mitigations to make it sound. One of the reasons that Horsham gave us for wanting to put the Homes England or the West of Ifield site into the local plan is that Homes England are a government agency and there's going to be all the money in the world to provide the mitigations that the site needs to make it good. We know that the government doesn't have all the money in the world. We've seen infrastructure projects pulled recently. So the Treasury isn't going to give up the funding to make the West of Ifield a quality development. And in fact, we can have concern about the experience we've seen with other Homes England's developments recently. You may have seen Northstowe reported on. It's been reported on a number of times. It's a 3,000 house development up in the Cambridge area. And there was a newspaper report only last week from the residents saying that they still haven't got the facilities that they were promised when they moved in, and that they still have to drive even to buy a pint of milk. How can we be assured that West of Ifield is not going to be the same? And who's going to pay for it? Is it going to be the government, which is indirectly the taxpayer, or will it in fact be the developers that pay for it by cutting down on the quality of the building, or in fact by cutting down on the affordable housing that's promised? The area is virtually brownfield. This has been directly reported to us as well, that when Horsham councillors were taken on a tour of the site before the latest iteration of the local plan, which is in abeyance, that they saw the area as virtually brownfield. Well, that is just untrue, and anybody who walks those fields, anybody who walks the route knows it to be untrue. And to be fair to Homes England, their ecological surveys have been very good. We won't deny that. And they show that the site is of a high biodiversity value with very many rare, threatened and priority species that are legally protected. But if this construction goes ahead, their habitats will be destroyed. We'll lose the hedgerows, we'll lose the trees in which they feed and they roost. We've seen, you've talked about the dead badgers, we're just going to see a complete decimation of the protected species in this area. But moreover, how can these losses be mitigated by new planting required for the biodiversity net gain? How can new planting possibly make up for the evolution of a rural area over hundreds and hundreds of years? Point 2 on the area is virtually brownfield, and this was touched on earlier. Well, it's quite true that Ifield Brook Meadows' status as a local green space is being ignored. It was mentioned that there's a plan for a cycle path through Ifield Brook Meadows. Now, we have heard directly from Crawley Borough Council that they have not received a planning application for this. So, how can the Horsham councillors give permission for a site that hasn't actually been agreed on partly on by Crawley, because they need to get that permission because that's Crawley land? Now, in terms of heritage, the rural setting of Ifield Village Conservation Area, and indeed Ifield Village Conservation Area has a Grade 1 listed building and a historic monument, the rural setting will be lost forever. Part of the very body, the very material of a conservation area is not just the buildings or the buildings itself, but it is its surroundings, it's the whole atmosphere of the place. That's going to be lost forever, along with the village's historical links to the rest of the parish. And as I mentioned, Ifield Green, which is a village street within the area, is actually proposed as a traffic route by Homes England. Ifield Golf Club. Ifield Golf Course is easily replaced. I think there's a lot of opposition in this room to that statement. So, despite the loss of 18 holes of Horsham Golf and Fitness, Homes England maintain that minor improvements to municipal courses at Tilgate, Rookwood and Goffs Park is adequate replacement for it. That's just untrue. Anyone who knows those courses and knows Ifield will know that that's just untrue. We know that Sport England and England Golf have an aspiration to actually encourage junior members into the game and more people into the game. And to do that, we need to provide facilities for those junior golfers. Well, Ifield Golf Club has a thriving junior membership. It has thriving coaching. My grandson is a member there. He's 13. He pays £150 a year to play as much as he likes, and he has coaching. Well, if you compare that to any of your children or grandchildren who maybe go to football or swimming and compare £150 a year for playing how much you like, it's cheap. It's cheap. So the fact that to imagine that Tilgate Golf Course or Rookwood or Goffs Park can match the quality of coaching and golf that those junior members are getting there is untrue. But it provides a high-quality golf experience for all, a competitive golf experience for all, and a social side for all. Older people who can't swim, who can't go and play football or tennis, are only going to be catered for by sports such as golf, which they're going to potentially lose. And there is also a claim that the displaced members could be absorbed into other local clubs, such as Copthorne. Well, actually, we know that most of the local golf clubs have waiting lists. And we also know that most of the local golf clubs, other golf clubs, have much higher fees and joining fees, which puts a potential cost barrier into them joining. So as well as the course itself being top-notch golf-wise, it's also rich in biodiversity, and Homes England have already had to scale back the housing on the actual golf course itself to mitigate for the fact that local colonies of very rare Bechstein bats use it for feeding and roosting. So the fact we completely dispel the fact that Garfield Golf Course is easily replaced. Now, this has been touched on as well. There's no plans for 10,000 houses. Homes England themselves admitted to us that that was still under review and would be kept under review when we went to their exhibition in March. So there's no plans right now. This application isn't for it, but we would firmly say that it's coming in the future. But for two further reasons as well. If we look at the plan which Homes England put up, a much bigger version of earlier, and we look at the Market Square, which is on the periphery of the golf course, that is the area which looks very much like a town centre. It's got the shops, it's got high-rise buildings, it has all the hallmarks of being a town centre, but it's right down here at the periphery of the development. Now, if the 10,000 houses happens, they're happening down here. So it was very much like that's intended as a town centre. The other point is that the continuation of the link road out to Faygate is still in the highways plans. So, for good planning purposes, Horsham shouldn't be considering this application piecemeal. If they consider it 3,000 then 7,000, we're never going to have the correct infrastructure. It's always going to be build on and build on and build on, and it just will never be suitable. The phasing of the 10,000 feels sneaky and undemocratic, as does the fact that West of Ifield site is not allocated in any adopted local plan by Horsham. Yes, the local plan, current draft local plan, hasn't been withdrawn, which means that the standing local plan, the 2015 local plan, the adopted local plan, still stands and carries weight. That does not include West of Ifield. That means that this planning application is speculative. It means it hasn't gone the robust inspection of the strategic spatial strategy by an inspector that it should have. Homes England themselves said they were not going to do that. We have it in writing in a 2023 document that they would always, never going to put in a planning application till this site was allocated in a local plan. But they have. And we don't think that's the way a government agency should be acting. And finally, water and flooding. We've seen no evidence that the Homes England solutions to water neutrality are sustainable. There are plans for rainwater harvesting, there are plans for boreholes and for water credits and snows, but none of these are proven solutions, and there are too many uncertainties which should have been resolved before the application was put in. So, for example, we haven't seen any reports from the Environment Agency as to whether the extraction from boreholes is feasible or sustainable, and indeed whether they'll grant an abstraction licence. And one more word, flooding. We have to say that the plans for flooding do look very good. But do they, and we will pose this question, do they sufficiently take into account the effects of climate change as it's accelerating in this country at the moment? So, that's what we're going to say on the myths and our objections. Just briefly moving on then to look at the process. Before I do so, we do have handouts, so we don't think you have to photograph or make notes. We've got one handout on objections and one on the actual process of objecting and who to write to, and there's some further information on the back there. So, how do you object? So it's actually really easy compared to the Reg 19, so you don't need to panic too much about it. So you can respond online, by email or by post, but always in every case you must provide your name, your full postal address and the application reference, which is DC 25 13 12. You've got all that written down here. So to respond online, you just go to the main Horsham District Council planning portal and you search under that reference, and it'll take you through to the West of Ifield planning application. Click once more and it'll take you through to a tab there, and if you click on the comments tab, you can directly input your objection online. If you want to send photos or files, you can't do that online, you'd have to send in an email to Horsham. And to send in at Horsham, you simply write to planning@horsham.gov.uk, and again, name, full address, planning reference. And to respond by post, it's just to Jason Hawkes, the case officer at the Horsham District Council address there. So on our handout here, and also on the Horsham website, you'll find some more guidance on how to respond. So there are some considerations that the planners will take into account, but there are some considerations that they will consider irrelevant. So it's worth having a look at those so you don't include those within your objections. So, for example, relevant considerations would include planning policy, it would include traffic safety and highway safety, parking, effects on listed buildings and areas of conservation, for example. And irrelevant considerations, ones that will just be thrown out, would be effects on property values, would be loss of views or moral or religious views. Again, you've got the answers of those to hand out, so don't worry about writing them all down now. Deadline. There's been a little bit of to-ing and froing with Horsham on this, but the latest advice we have is that the deadline is the 12th of October, so do try and get your objections in by the 12th of October. However, Horsham have told us that they will fully consider any responses that come in after the 12th of October, as long as it's before they make any decision. Once they've made a decision, you're done, that's it, but they will consider them. But our advice is get them in by the 12th of October if possible. Save West of Ifield are going to put in a response by the 12th of October, but we will then, as further information comes in, supplement those responses with further responses. And you can do the same as if you want to.
Kathy, 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'm done. So finally, What else can you do should you wish to? Well, there are a number of bodies that Horsham have to write to and get a view from as part of their planning determination process. So we can see here there's a number of statutory consultees, West Sussex, Sport England, the Environment Agency, for example, that you could, if you wish to, write to try and give your point of view so that those consultees had a fully rounded view of what people are thinking about it, not just Horsham's view, not just Homes England's view. We will be putting this presentation on our website, and when it's on our website, there'll be some contact details as well. Finally, you can also write to your MP or the Horsham District Councillors to ensure that your councillors also know how you feel about this. And that is me done.